Good afternoon, and welcome to the Technology Association of Georgia's 4th annual 2022 Converge conference. Hey, we're so excited about today's great program. Are we excited? We all happy to be here? Awesome. This year's conference theme is Inclusion Driving Innovation. Inclusion Driving Innovation. To transform, advance, and grow. Today, you will hear from the top thought leaders on the strategies they're all implementing. We're anxious to hear what you're all doing. The execution of these strategies and the outcomes they have produced. I want to commend TAG and especially Larry, our CEO and president, for convening us all today on this very important topic and engaging in dialogue and an open exchange of ideas that will further advance our inclusive innovation economy here in Georgia and the overall benefit of the technical ecosystem here. We hope you all enjoyed today's conference, and there is no doubt the content will be rich, thoughtful, and inspiring. And now I'd like to introduce and welcome to the stage our Converge 2022 co-chairs, Teresa Edwards from Warner Brothers Discovery and John Wilson from Spelman College.
All right, so thank you, Bill. John and I are honored to serve as this year's Converge co-chairs. There we go. Converge is a summit for dialogue and education, focusing on diversity, equity and inclusion, and workforce access and development in technology community. So, thanks to everyone for joining us in this important conversation. John and I also want to thank this year's conference planning committee and the TAG staff for all their efforts to make this year's event a success.
That's right, Teresa. Converge will highlight trailblazers who are creating a powerful ethos across our dynamic technology community. We're committed to keeping companies globally competitive and to fostering the next generation of talent that fuels innovation and Georgia's economy for the long term. We have a great day of exciting programming and networking planned.
All right, so absolutely, John. I'm looking forward to a great networking, hearing new ideas, and keynote address from Stephanie Stuckey, President and CEO of Stuckey's, and the Fireside Chat. Then we'll have inspiring breakout sessions where you can have a chance to hear from our leaders in our tech community.
And don't forget, we're celebrating TAG's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Awards. We'll be recognizing individuals and companies who have demonstrated exceptional efforts to advance diversity and inclusion within their organizations. These are leaders who embrace the excellence of all employees and achieve positive outcomes in both the workplace and in their communities. I can't wait to find out who the winners are.
I know, right? So now that we have set the stage, please welcome Larry Williams, President and CEO of TAG.
Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see you all. I'm so excited to be here today. Converge is one of my favorite events that we do all year, and this is a super exciting time for us. But thank you so much, John and Teresa, for kicking off Converge 2022 and for serving as co-chairs for this year's event. Thanks to your strong leadership and the generous support of many of our sponsors, including FleetCor, Elevon, Truist, Earthlink, VMware, Deluxe, Warner Brothers Discovery, Scientific Games, Pyramid Consulting, Coca-Cola, Honeywell, and all of our great sponsors, we have a tremendous program in store for you today. In addition to sponsors, we also have to always think of the great leadership that we have at TAG. And so, Bill, thank you so much for your leadership as chair of our board of directors. And I'd like for everyone else who serves on our board of directors or in our leadership positions for our leadership council for our societies, please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause. It takes strong leadership, and I think that's, really merges into what we're doing today. And with Converge is taking place at a pivotal time. Technology is changing faster than ever, yet the inequality gap persists. This conference is dedicated to the proposition that technology can and should work in the service of people. Not just some people, but all people and for everyone. TAG's mission is to drive innovation among Georgia's technology community, inspire tech leaders, and foster inclusivity. And we do this through our 4 foundational pillars. Think about it: connect, promote, influence, and educate. And that means making sure that technology doesn't disproportionately favor one group or another. This may not be the easy thing to do, but it is definitely the right thing to do, especially in Georgia, home to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and so many other civil rights icons. In light of this heritage, TAG is committed to making technology work as an equalizer, so inclusion drives innovation. Building a truly inclusive economy takes an all-hands-on-deck approach. It takes all of us working in partnership to achieve 5 key principles. The first one is access. Let's face it, and let's do something about it. There is a pressing need to help people in underrepresented talent pools connect with career opportunities. We have to do a better job of accessing these great jobs and these great careers, especially in underserved communities. Remember, an introduction can change a life. The second one is equity. People are hungry to learn new skills, grow professionally, and better themselves. When that happens, families thrive, and it generates a positive life cycle and benefits everyone. TAG is leading the way by supporting STEAM education and developing partnerships to remove barriers to opportunity. We have to stay persistent to see better results. Diversity is our third principle. The possibilities of the inclusion innovation economy are endless, but we will never be able to realize our true potential if some of us are left behind. Let's work together to keep upskilling people while supporting tech training and apprenticeships. The fourth principle is participation. Last year, TAG formed a social justice and equity task force to bring to life these principles and ensure diversity gets embedded in TAG's DNA. Thank you to Stacy Hagan, Michael Sullivan, Roy Hadley, Kyle Tothill, and so many more for leading this effort. And this year, as a result of that, TAG launched its TAG Bridge Builders program that aims to create a more equitable technology workforce, one that's more representative of our population. Specifically, the next 5 years, TAG Bridge Builders wants to advance 1,000 Black people in technology careers. This is a very, very important mark for us. So helping people gain the right skills, connecting entrepreneurs with needed resources, and promoting career paths in technology. TAG Bridge Builders will advocate for minorities to achieve higher level management and executive jobs through TAG member companies, public advocacy, and programming. Additionally, the initiative aims for more diverse membership in all of our TAG boards, societies, committees, and task forces with a goal of at least 25% of our people from diverse backgrounds. We've already exceeded that this year, so thank you all for your engagement. A key pillar is on January 24th. We are hosting our first TAG Connect. So think about a program that is a run it by the buyer, kind of a Shark Tank style program that we'll be doing at the Battery at Truist Park. We're hosted by our friends at Comcast. Thank you so much for that. And we'll be looking at, what are the needs of our companies? How can our entrepreneurs learn what the opportunities are, and even connect them with the procurement opportunities from buyers to assist our startups in our regions. Again, those connections and access are so important for these companies. And as always, for more information, you can find it at tagonline.org. But there is one more principle, and that's the fifth principle that we work under, and that is human rights. The idea is simple but powerful. Everybody should be respected, honored, and treated with dignity. Too often our sense of human decency gets overlooked in the workplace as we talk about automations. How do we cut costs? How do we drive that profit? But we can do better, and we can make sure everyone is connected. Everyone deserves to live out their dreams in an equal and equitable way, and that's what we're here about today. So thank you, everyone, for joining Converge and for your leadership in making technology a catalyst for positive change. And, and I'll tell you, and we're going to talk about this later, this is where we can lead. This is where Georgia can lead, and we continue to be the leader to make sure that we have that great equitable inclusion and drive technology. So thank you for being here, and now please join me and welcome back to the stage John Wilson, who will introduce our keynote. John.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you so much, Larry. I am delighted to introduce our keynote speaker, Stephanie Stuckey, CEO of Stuckey's. As many of you know, Stuckey's has been known for generations as a highway oasis, serving up pecan rolls and kitschy souvenirs. Founded in 1937 by her grandfather, W.S. Stuckey Sr. in Eastman, Georgia, Stuckey's grew to over 350 stores nationwide by its peak in the 1970s. The company was sold in 1964 and sadly declined for decades under a series of corporate owners. Fortunately, Stuckey's is now back in family hands and making a comeback, thanks to the acquisition of a pecan shelling and candy plant. Stephanie received both her undergraduate and law degrees from the University of Georgia. She worked as a trial lawyer, was elected to 7 terms as a state representative, ran an environmental law firm, served as Director of Sustainability for Atlanta, and taught as an adjunct professor at the University of Georgia School of Law. Stephanie purchased Stuckey's in November of 2019 and assumed the role of CEO. Stephanie's achievements include being named one of the most admired CEOs of 2022 by the Atlanta Business Chronicle, 100 most influential Georgians by Georgia Trend magazine, and a graduate of Leadership Atlanta. She serves on the corporate board of Bealls, a Florida-based retailer with more than 550 stores. The Stuckey story has been featured recently in the New York Times Sunday Business section, the Today Show, as well as the Washington Post. When she's not running Stuckey's, Stephanie enjoys traveling by car to explore the back roads of America and pulling over at every boiled peanut stand and the world's largest ball of twine. Please join me in welcoming Stephanie Stuckey.
Thank you so much. And when Larry called me to invite me to speak at this event, I have to say I was taken aback because I looked at the roster of people on the agenda and I saw amazing talent like Teresa with Warner Brothers, Bill with NCR. We have global billion-dollar corporations speaking today like Google and Coca-Cola. And this is what I do. Like John said, I took over my family's business 3 years ago, and those of you not familiar with our brand, and it's okay if you're not, because we were super popular in the 1960s. It's been a minute, so it's okay if you don't know what we do. But unlike some of the other companies here that sell world-class technology services and products, this is what you can find at Stuckey's. These are actual products that I purchased at a Stuckey store. We sell ashtrays in the shapes of toilets that say, put your butts here. I don't know what that alligator thing is that's wearing a boa and playing an accordion. I got that at the Stuckey's in Welsh, Louisiana, and we're most famous for our pecan log rolls. When I bought our company 3 years ago, we were 6 figures in debt, and the sum total of our assets was a dusty rented warehouse in Eastman, Georgia, full of merchandise, much of which had not turned in over a decade, including we had 6 cases of Britney Spears t-shirts. Thank God she made a comeback. So that's my first week on the job with my new role. None of the stores that John mentioned in the introductory remarks, there's 350 stores in 40 states. They were all gone, only 13 still remained. We don't own or operate any of them. The candy plant my grandfather once ran, long shuttered. So this was the sum total of our assets. So unlike other companies here that have $1 billion in assets, access to high-tech technology, services, and products, this is what Stuckey's does. And we're here in the heart of Atlanta, one of the most diverse and educated cities in the world, with first-class institutions like Morehouse and Spelman, Clark Atlanta, Georgia Tech. And I'm CEO of a pecan company that is in Rennes, Georgia. Population 2,900, 10% of the population has a college degree. And the average household income is $37,000. I checked the census data this week, by the way, and it said that there were 0 companies owned that weren't owned by white males. So clearly it needs to be updated because there's a new CEO in Rennes, Georgia, and it is not a he. So I've got to make sure we update the census data, but this gives you a picture of the company I run and where I am. But I say all this to say that despite these glaring differences, I think my story, and thank you, Larry, for agreeing that my story belongs as part of this conference, because we need more small businesses at the table in these conversations, talking about innovation and talking about diversity. 99% of companies in America are small businesses. And 1 in 5 Americans live in rural communities. So it's important that we are at the table. And let's face it, here in Georgia, most of our political leadership hails from small communities and talk about the importance of rural communities. So I think having voices like mine in these rural communities, doing our best to make a difference. And when I talk about equity and inclusion, I can tell you I don't get this nodding up and down and that's a great idea. I get these stares like, why are we talking about this? But it's really important to be fully inclusive, to engage all communities, especially communities like Rennes, Georgia, where I am. And I recognize that for some businesses, DEI is a challenging concept because it's hard to quantify it sometimes, especially in the world that I live in, on a balance sheet. But I can really relate to this concept because when I bought Stuckey's, we were 6 figures in debt. You'll appreciate this. I had 0 business background. I think most of you in the room probably have some business background. And I remember looking at our balance sheet, and I was encouraged because it said $135,000. And I took it to a financial expert to get their opinion, and they said, there's parentheses around that, Stephanie. And then they said, well, what is your EBITDA? And I thought EBITDA was a Swedish rock band. I did not know anything about running a company. And thank God I didn't, because I would have never bought Stuckey's. Nobody in their right mind would have done that. But why I bought the company is because I saw what wasn't on the balance sheet. I saw the value of the brand. I saw what my grandfather had built. I knew the way we made people feel and the way we treated people. And that is not something that you'll ever see on a balance sheet. And so I can appreciate things like equity and inclusion and diversity and innovation. It doesn't always translate as easily into figures, but it does translate 100%. Without that, you cannot build a brand. You cannot build a business. And that's why I'm standing here today, being able to be successful with our business, is because you see beyond what's in black and white on the balance sheet. So since a lot of you probably have not heard of our company or don't really know us other than maybe you've heard of a pecan log roll, I'll give you a brief history. This is my grandfather. He started Stuckey's in 1937 during the Great Depression. So anyone who tells you that economic hard times is a terrible time to start a business or COVID is a terrible time to buy your family's business in debt, I disagree. I actually think hard times are the absolute best time to start a business. And when you look at the history of businesses in this country, Microsoft, Target, Facebook, Uber, the list goes on and on. So many companies that we know today and respect, Amazon, were founded during economic hard times because that's what builds grit. And so my grandfather was during the Great Depression. He had to drop out of college, and he was selling pecans on the side of the road to make ends meet. And he grew from that humble pecan stand in Eastman, Georgia, to, at its peak, we had 368 stores in 40 states. We were really the first roadside retail chain. So before TA, Love's, Pilot, Buc-ee's, there was Stuckey's. And if you went to our store, that's what you would experience. That could have been me. I grew up in that era. I was in the back of the Woody station wagon doing this to get the trucks to honk, playing with the CB radio. So we had this whole history where our company was the DNA of the road trip and the fun of exploring America by car. And so that's what our brand was at its peak. But like any great story, I think you have to have a downfall, and this was our downfall. My grandfather sold the company to Pet Dairy Corporation, and then Pet got bought out by a Chicago railroad conglomerate, and then there was another corporate owner. So there was a series of corporate owners that frankly trashed our brand. I can tell you that a Chicago railroad conglomerate does not get a kitschy roadside brand that sells rubber alligators and pecan log rolls. So they sold off our assets, and there was almost nothing left. And then we had the Arab oil embargo. People stopped stopped driving. And then Delta, thank goodness, we had changes in the airline rules and regulations. So domestic airfare, air travel became affordable. So all of these factors was like this perfect storm where America's flying more, they're driving less, our company gets sold, everything goes down, and our company flounders. But what made our company survive, despite all of these hard times, is what this conference is about. It was how we treated people. It was having a sense of purpose. It was having an understanding of values and something much bigger than making a profit. So this is the most important thing I learned about our company. Even though I didn't have a background in business, I got my grandfather's papers. And when I bought the company, I spent every night reading through his papers. That was the best gift I got. And I learned our family's history, reading through the papers. And the most interesting thing that I learned was this. When my grandfather ran Stuckey's, he had a saying, every traveler is a friend. I saw that throughout his papers, and I even saw it framed. And my father told me he had that over his desk. But what I learned was that it wasn't just a saying that he had on his desk. It was how he ran his business, and it was how he lived his life. He treated everyone who came in contact with our brand, whether you came in the store or you purchased some of our products, he treated people as a friend. And that was proven, the best example of it was during the 1940s and 50s when the Jim Crow laws were fully in effect, especially in the Deep South where we're based. We were never segregated. Many, many places on the interstate were whites only. Stuckey's was always an open, safe, welcoming oasis. Anyone could come. So if you've seen the movie The Green Book, there's a scene at Stuckey's. It's the most important scene in my opinion. But if you haven't seen the movie, see the movie, The Green Book. I'm sure most of you know about that, but it was the road guide that would tell African Americans where they could safely pull over. And Stuckey's is in the movie because we were always open to everyone. So fast forward 30 years, I am running for office in the Georgia legislature. I'm actually running for re-election. I had been redistricted. I went from a district that was 97% white to 67% African American. And I was running against the president of the local NAACP. I did not think I was going to win, but I decided I was going to run again. I thought I still had a lot to serve, and I went to see the most influential black preacher in the community. And I went to worship there, and during the service, he asked me to come up and say a few words of inspiration, and I got up there, and I thought I did a pretty good job. Afterwards, he brings me back into his office, and I felt like this is when he's going to tell me he wasn't going to support me. And he said, "I'm going to back you. I'm endorsing you." And I said, "Wow, I must have done a really good job in the pulpit." And he said, "Oh, no, that's not it." He said, "It's your grandfather. It was how he treated people who look like me. We were always welcome at Stuckey's. That's why I'm endorsing you." So when I talk to people about purpose and equity and inclusion, that's purpose. It lives on 40 years after you're gone. My grandfather died when I was 11 years old. If you are truly living and running your company, and the way you live should be the way you run your business and the way you do your work. If it is purpose-driven and if it's treating people with respect and kindness, that's going to live on for decades. And it's not just going to help your granddaughter get reelected. It's going to create a brand. It's going to create a sense of community. And that is the reason why, despite all the hard times, I am convinced that our brand is still around. We should, by all accounts, have gone bankrupt by now. We've been out of family hands for decades. We were selling ashtrays shaped like toilets, for Pete's sake. But I cannot tell you how many times people come up to me and say, "I love the way I felt when I pulled over at your stores. I was always treated well." I spoke up yesterday in Brazelton, Georgia. An elderly black woman came up to me afterwards, almost in tears, and said, "I'm in Sandersville, Georgia. Every single vacation we took as a kid, we always stopped at Stuckey's." And she said, "I thought it was because my father loved your pecan log rolls." And she said, because I told this story, she said, "Now I know why. Now I know why we always stopped. He wouldn't tell me that we couldn't go anywhere else." So that, to me, is equity and inclusion. So bringing the company back around, this is, by the way, what the 13 original stores look like. Not so great, and we don't own or operate any of them. So what I have done to rebuild our company is invest in community and invest in manufacturing. So we're truly getting back to our roots. The pecan is Georgia's native nut. Georgia is the #1 state for pecan production. I don't know how many of you know that. But instead of snacking on the peanut or the macadamia nut or the Brazil nut or the cashew or the almond, we should be all snacking on the pecan. And the way we are bringing the company back is all about equity and inclusion. It is focusing on local product sourced from local farmers in small town Georgia where we're growing jobs. And so that's my business partner. He's my cousin. He's a pecan farmer. And we have purchased a candy plant in Rennes, Georgia. And we're about to renovate and expand and have the distribution center move there as well. So that's our distribution center employees. But what we have done, even though we can't afford a DEI officer, I would love that someday. You're looking at, I guess, the DEI officer, because I'm the one who's always reminding everyone how important this is. But we can afford to treat everyone in our workforce with respect and provide them with a pathway to prosperity. So what we've done is we've given 3 rounds of pay raises for our frontline workers. We're almost at double the starting wages. We're very close. We're like 50 cents away. Yes. We're offering health care benefits. There were no health care benefits when we bought the manufacturing facility. And it was over 100 employees. We were kind of out of compliance with the law, or the prior person was. And we've created a cross-training program between teams to allow for education, advancement, and we're showing people that there is a pathway to prosperity, that if you want a job at Stuckey's in Wrench, Georgia, you can make that your career and you can stay there your whole life. But most importantly, what I'm trying to do is throughout our work is make sure that we are showing our employees, and our workforce is right at 50% African American, that we're showing them that we're not just talking about they have an opportunity, but we're showing it. And here's an example. We were interviewing potential insurance companies, and we had 3 firms pitch to us. Each firm had a team, okay? Every single insurance firm team was a white male. So no disrespect, I love white men. I married one, I have a white male child. But that does not look like our company, and it does not look like our community, and it does not look like our country. So I texted everyone in the room and our leadership team, and I said, they're all white males. And I could see when they were looking down, and their faces just turned red. And I said, I shouldn't have to ask this. I said, all I ask is that we have one minority firm at the table for an interview. That's it, just at the table to bid. And one of my managers said, oh, well, I don't know any minority-owned firms. And I said, okay, watch me, give me 10 minutes. I will find someone. 10 minutes, I found someone. Okay, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. And we had a blind process. We reviewed all the bids, not knowing where they came from. Guess who won the bid? The minority-owned firm. And guess who came to our candy plant to give the presentation to our 49% black population workforce? An African-American man, an African-American woman. So that's what matters when you're trying to show people that they have a pathway to prosperity. It can't just be a bunch of white dudes up there. Again, no disrespect. And innovation and technology, I did want to touch on that because this is a tech conference. It's not just about a new app or some fancy software, although that certainly can be. But for a lot of us that are small businesses and can't afford a lot of that software, this is our warehouse, okay? I would love, I talk to people about our warehouse and they say, oh, do you have those scanners? Do you have all that equipment that allows you to instantaneously track your inventory? I would love that. I got a quote on that. We can't afford it. So we're innovating the best we can, doing things that we're able to implement on the front lines. And the most important thing we're doing is we're listening. So this was actually taken this week. That's a Cyber Monday. We spent all day packing orders. We packed 300 online orders, which for us is a big deal. Our online sales are up 550%. And so we're packing these orders, and several people on the team made recommendations for ways that we could improve our processes. So innovation is listening to your frontline workers, responding to what they're saying. We've already implemented several of the improvements that they've suggested to us. Oh, and that's just a picture of our candy plant. And then I wanted to show, this is one of my last slides. How am I on time, Larry? Okay. This is the candy plant when my grandfather ran it. And one of my very earliest memories is walking through this candy plant with him. And the most important part of that memory, I'll be honest, was tasting the brittle right as it was made, because they would pour the hot brittle onto this cold marble table, and it would harden up and it would crack, and then you could eat it on the spot. So that was my favorite part of the memory. But the other thing I remember is that he knew every single worker by name. Black, white, male, female, young, old. It could be a 17-year-old high school student who was working there in the summers. He not only knew their names, but he knew their families. And he would say, how's your mom? How are things at church? Whatever. He knew them. And he had hundreds of employees. And so that, just knowing people's names is so important, treating people with respect. So what I did, because we have 120 employees now. So in 3 years, we've gone from 6 full-time employees to, we're at about 120 right now. We're 100 full-time employees, and peak season 120. So I still am learning everyone's names, but what I did was I got every employee a sweatshirt that has their name on the back. So that's helping me a lot. And it's about creating pathways to prosperity. And the last story I'm gonna tell is the story of Raza and his family. So his last name is Raza, but everyone calls him Raza, and that's his brother Kazan. And they're from Pakistan. They came to this country not really speaking the language. They were not US citizens. He bought one convenience store, and that convenience store used to be a Stuckey's. It was no longer a Stuckey's. And people kept stopping and saying, why don't you sell pecan log rolls? And he's like, what's a pecan log roll? No clue. So he ended up partnering with Stuckey's. He licensed his store, made it a Stuckey's again, started selling Stuckey's products, became very successful with it. He now owns and operates 7 Stuckey stores. He is our biggest fan. Out of all our, we only have these 13 stores. We have 70 licensed locations. Out of all of those 70 locations, and all the other owners, with the exception of a handful, are American, born and raised. Raza is our biggest champion. He loves Stuckey's. He loves America. So that's what we're trying to build, is that there is a place for you, and we want you to prosper. And he's about to open another Stuckey's, and I couldn't be more excited for him. So I'm going to close with my lessons from an 87-year-old startup. I very much feel like I'm running a startup, given how we started. But diversity and innovation is for everyone, including us small businesses and rural communities. The human return on investment is just as important as what you see on your financial statement. DEI is about treating everyone as a friend. It's about creating that sense of community and that sense of belonging. And I will tell you that it's working. We've gone from 6 figures in debt to, we closed out last year a little over 13 million gross sales, and we're hoping to hit 15 million this year. So please go buy some more pecan log rolls. Make me very happy, and we'll continue with our mission. This is my information, how you can reach me. I am learning every day, and that's what I love. Even though I run a business in Renge, Georgia, and I spend a lot of time there, I am still an Atlanta resident, and I feel so blessed to be in a community that is so diverse, that is so full of culture and education and opportunity. And I really think that is why we're able to make this little business in Renge, Georgia, be so open to diversity and equity, is because I'm at the center of it here, and I get to take what I'm learning here in Atlanta and bring it to this small community. And I think that's how we can really start implementing change. So I'm here to learn from you as well. I look forward to hearing from you. If you don't get a chance to talk to me here, please email me or hit me up on social media. I'm even on TikTok. So you can find me, and I would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention.
The fact that you have been able to become what you have become in life, a part of that is that you didn't believe the dogma. You didn't believe what people said was possible for a black man.
Well, from the very beginning, I didn't believe that. I mean,
Yeah,
when
that's what I mean.
Yeah, when I arrived in Florida, everywhere I turned, that's what was being said to me. But you see, before I got to Florida, I had had the opportunity through my mother and my dad to have set some kind of foundation as to who I was. And I was not what I was required to be in Florida. I was not that. I couldn't be that. I was taught that I had basic rights as a human being.
Don't let the circumstances be an excuse for not achieving. We could have very easily, oh, they don't like me, they don't want me, and gone off in the corner with our head bowed. That's not the American way.
Being called ambitious, which is what I was called, made me seem kind of conniving and threatening and that I had planned this all. Never, ever occurred to me that I could be Secretary of State. And all of a sudden, I'm Secretary of State, and they wonder why they weren't.
To Secretary Christopher, I want to express my gratitude. I can only hope that my heels can fill your shoes.
Women are very lucky in many ways because our life does come in segments. Some of it broken up by the time to have children or have a career. And so I think that women can do everything. They just can't do it all at the same time.
Thank you. Wow. I don't know about you, but I am already feeling incredibly humbled and inspired. And I have a new item on my holiday shopping list for stocking stuffers with pecan logs. So I think we can all help Stephanie hit that goal for the year. So good afternoon, everyone. As chair of this year's DE&I Awards, I want to start off by thanking the fabulous judges for their time and efforts in reviewing the 19 award applications for the 3 award categories that we had this year. You'll see the names of this year's judges on the screen now. Please join me in thanking them all. I also want to take this opportunity to thank LaShawn Solomon, chair of TAG's DE&I Society, for her and her team's efforts to produce the great video that we just saw. What a powerful reminder of so many individuals who have contributed to the cause of equity and equality in our society and in the world. Thanks, LaShawn. Every year, we get to recognize and celebrate the inclusive technology community throughout Georgia. TAG's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Leadership Awards are committed to honoring those companies and individuals who have demonstrated exceptional efforts to advance diversity and inclusion within their organizations. They embrace the excellence of all employees and achieve positive outcomes in both the workplace and in the community. This year, the DE&I applications were very strong and represented a wide array of innovative work related to inclusion driving innovation. The 3 categories of awards include the DE&I Tech Impact Leader of the Year, the DE&I Emerging Tech Leader of the Year, and the Inclusive Technology Leadership Award. I will begin with the finalists for each category, then share a brief overview of the work that was done by each winner just prior to announcing the winner. So let's get started. Our first award is the DE&I Tech Impact Leader of the Year. This award recognizes a C-level officer in a corporate, government, education, or nonprofit sector who has primary leadership in technology and in DE&I programs for their organization. The finalists for DE&I Tech Impact Leader are as follows: Megan Hines, President of Financial Institutions at IDEMIA; Jennifer Baker, Chief Technology Officer for Synovus; Luella Dowling, Global Lead Cultural and Employee Experience for NCR; and LaShawn Solomon, Global Head of DE&I for Pyramid Consulting; Teresa Edwards from School to Possibilities. Congratulations to all of these finalists. Just being here and being nominated and making the finalist round really demonstrates your personal commitment and your proven leadership in advancing diversity and inclusion. So this year's winner is a leader in a company that is committed to DE&I. Her company holds specific objectives to build diverse teams where all members have a voice, to ensure equity in compensation and advancement opportunities, and to embrace inclusion as fuel for innovation. They publicly report metrics to illustrate progress against their stated DE&I goals and consider this focus to be a strategic priority. A 20-year financial services executive, our 2022 award winner serves as Chief Technology Officer, overseeing all enterprise technology operations. As a female CTO, she is one of only 8% of women to hold this role in America's corporations, and she feels compelled to provide leadership for women who are also on the rise. In 2019, she founded a Women in Technology group within the broader community to connect thought leaders of all genders, boost innovative thinking, encourage development, and ultimately help attract diverse talent. She believes each woman has a responsibility to foster, mentor, and advocate for other women in the workplace, and to create a culture of allies for women in leadership. And she walks her talk, Since 2020, she has led her company's financial and volunteer support for the Drake House, which is an emergency and transitional resource for homeless mothers. Because of her technology leadership and commitment to diversity in the community, she was the recipient of her company's Chairman's Game Changer Award. We are honored to also recognize her as this year's recipient of the DE&I Tech Impact Leader of the Year Award. Congratulations to this year's winner, Jennifer Baker, CTO of Synovus. Please join me on the stage. Brief picture opportunity. Congratulations again. The next award is the 2022 DE&I Emerging Tech Leader of the Year. This award recognizes a rising leader in any type or size Georgia organization who demonstrates leadership in DE&I technology programs and projects. This award recognizes individuals with high potential for future leadership. The finalists this year for the DE&I Emerging Tech Leader of the Year include Kazi Hack, EY Parthenon, Jeremy Bennett, Mercer University School of Business, Nadine Bent Russell, Honeywell Connected Enterprise, Benjamin Yang, Georgia Tech Research Institute, and Ilan Siriaco of Equifax. Congratulations to all these rising stars. We congratulate them on their contributions to advancing DE&I initiatives in their organizations, and we really look forward to watching their impact in the years to come. This year's award winner has demonstrated leadership in DEI on at least 3 fronts. First, he pushed to build a technical research team that met representation ideals while maintaining technical excellence, and achieved notable success, resulting in recognition with his organization's Inclusive Innovation Award. He's known for establishing an inclusive culture by example and strives to reach beyond his network to identify newly qualified team members. Second, he has served on his organization's benefits committee for several years, helping to drive improved access to parental benefits and COVID-19 leave as a means to improving equity. Finally, as he advanced through the ranks of a conference planning committee, he ensured at least 50% female representation in the thought leadership and planning for those technical research conferences. That's a notable improvement in this space. When looking to the future, this year's winner believes that the most widespread advances occur when DE&I efforts are integrated with the core goals of the organization. To that end, he is increasing outreach to HBCUs and minority-serving institutions to identify leading researchers, establish collaboration opportunities, and attract new investments for these institutions. Please join me in congratulating this year's DE&I Emerging Tech Leader of the Year, Dr. Benjamin Yang, Senior Research Engineer, Georgia Tech Research Institute. I don't think Dr. Yang has made it here yet today, but we will definitely congratulate him when we see him. So our final award this afternoon is the Inclusive Technology Leadership Award. This award recognizes a program or project in an organization that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion in technology. The finalists for the Inclusive Technology Leadership Award include Morehouse School of Medicine, Honeywell Connected Enterprise, Warner Brothers Discovery, Cisco Systems, and Deluxe Corporation. Congratulations to all of these finalists and the many the many applicants for this award for your dedication to inclusion and making a difference in your organizations. This year's winner has a stated purpose to power an inclusive future for all. With targeted action plans, they have increased global workforce diversity each year for 8 years at all levels of management in the company. In 2021, they became a founding partner with the 110 Coalition, which is an organization committed to upskill, reskill, hire, and promote 1 million African American or Black Americans who do not have a 4-year degree into family-sustaining careers over the next 10 years. And they're doing their part. In 2022, they hired 85 full-time employees from this program. This year's winner also made a $5 million commitment to the Black Economic Alliance, which allots funding to expand the Center for Black Entrepreneurship programming at Spelman College, Morehouse College, and Clark Atlanta University. These contributions are just a few of the many ways that this year's Inclusive Technology Leadership Award winner is striving to fulfill its commitment to power an inclusive future for all. Please join me in congratulating this year's winner, Cisco Systems. I have a representative join us on the stage. Thanks, everyone, and congratulations to all of this year's finalists and winners. What a phenomenal representation of the great work being done to advance the cause of inclusion that drives innovation. Thank you.
How's this? Is that okay? Well, great. Well, thanks again. Erica, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Kamal? Yeah. Good start. We've had a lot of energy in the room. It's always good when you have a good, energetic crowd. Delighted to be here. Everyone, I think, knows me, but I'd love for y'all just take a second to introduce yourselves and what your roles are.
Yeah, hi, good morning. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Erica Smith. I lead Microsoft's philanthropic strategy for Atlanta, LA, and Chicago, focused on advancing digital equity and inclusion.
Swapping. Okay. There, is that better? Yeah. There we go. Thank y'all. Well, as we have these two icons on the stage, it really points to the importance of the challenge that we all face here and how it's everybody's responsibility to contribute to this. And I'm looking so much forward to this conversation. You know, inclusion drives innovation. You know, we know that it's true, the data's there, but it goes beyond D&I and it's inclusive of all of the efforts that we're talking about today. But one thing we want to talk about today is how is it actionable? How does it really improve the processes, the products, the services, and the other things that we're talking about, including people's lives? One of the biggest challenges for our technology community today is workforce. And so that's where we want to begin the conversation. And so Erica, I want to start with you and, help us frame up the challenge. What are the biggest challenges for our companies, for Microsoft, and how do you see that challenge in front of us?
The biggest challenge that I see for a lot of companies is to reframe and reshape how they approach hiring processes. From a technology perspective, most people are interested of those who've graduated from the Georgia Techs of the world, the Emory, AUC, Morehouse Spelman, and et cetera. But with Microsoft's investment and Google's and other companies' investment in non-traditional programs, whether that's from your technical schools or your nonprofit training providers, those boot camps and certifications, we need to expand our perspective on that. You look at Atlanta, you look at this diverse talent that has created the social construct, the culture, have put us on the map in terms of our national position as a purveyor and a creator of content, of music, and et cetera. So if we have the talent that can shape our culture, our perspective, and create economic impact across other sectors, then why can't we invite these groups to be a part of our technology environment and help to expand the digital economy in Atlanta?
That's great, Erica. Kamal, how would you frame it up?
No shade.
That's a great perspective, and Erica talked a little bit about this as well, but talking to our community college system, and they, said and were bragging that they have 98% placement rate of graduates, 89% in careers of choice. And I thought, that's great, very, very successful. But we have a demand that exceeds that. So how do we grow the pie? How do we provide more opportunities? As I mentioned before, it's an all hands on deck. So building on your comments, Kamal, how do we increase the pie? Because we need more. Sure.
Are trying to engage, I think we have to reevaluate the boundaries of our influence. So we don't just think about recruitment per se or kind of complementary programs, but to be involved in the more structural issues that keep these cities from having the same repeatable problems.
That's great. Erica, please.
And to just add to that, you know, I think about when we've seen it when companies were interested in entering different cities. When Amazon was looking at Long Island City and the community, there was an uproar because they saw it as economic impact for a small population, but the trickle down of that was going to have detrimental impacts on displacement of businesses, of people, and et cetera. And to Kamal's perspective and what he shared, that's happening in Atlanta, and we've seen it around the country. You know, when we were talking about this session, it made me think of San Francisco. Who in this room ever woke up and said, you know what, I want to move to San Francisco because it's cool? Most people are interested because of the tech companies that are there that are becoming these unicorns and creating millionaires and billionaires. And so there's a great emphasis on the ability to attract companies to Atlanta. But imagine if we have, you know, worked on our K-12 system. We have workforce development dollars, whether they're federal, local dollars that are pouring into our community that can be leveraged. And then we're unleashing the genius so that our residents who are here are creating the new tech company that is an inclusive approach, is hiring their neighbors, that are contributing to our society, that is continuing to position Atlanta as a destination. Someone asked me once, why did I choose to work for Microsoft? And I said, I have a dream that when people think of Atlanta, they would say, this is my destination for people who are, can help build the better metaverse for my company. This is the destination for a diverse workforce in cybersecurity. When we think about the boundaries in our city, when we think about the West Side, Southwest Atlanta, Southeast Atlanta, places where I reside, there are young people around that's creating and innovating, but in a way that we can't connect with. So how do we move ourselves from our wonderful, you know, offices with, you know, Xboxes and foosball tables and lounges and rooftops, and move into community to demystify tech? When you talk to young people about music, they're thinking about being rappers, but I was talking to young people about data science and data analytics, and everyone was like, that's boring, why do I want to do that? So then I said, do you like Spotify? Oh, those curated playlists are dope. That's data analysis. So we as tech companies have to shift how we even communicate what we're doing to get people more interested, and then providing the infrastructure, the resources to cultivate that talent so they can dream big and be the next Coca-Cola, the next Delta, the next Microsoft, the next Google that's created in Atlanta for Atlanta, the FUBU, for us, by us mentality. And we can do that with tech in our city.
That's great. I often observe that, you know, nobody recruited Coca-Cola, nobody recruited Home Depot or Delta, or in Seattle, nobody recruited Boeing or Microsoft or Amazon. They all grew up there and they became globally dominant. So, you know, we have that in our DNA. I love the way we've turned this conversation a bit to the employee or the person, the people, the human side of things. And from that point of view, you know, are there non-traditional ways? Because quite frankly, from the technology community here, we're experiencing an unprecedented prosperity. How do we connect our diverse population to this great prosperity? And are there some untraditional ways for us to accomplish that?
Absolutely. There's a program that we're developing through our Accelerate Atlanta Coalition that involves experiential learning. So we have TechBridge, City of Refuge, different nonprofit training providers that are providing the curriculum. When they apply for the jobs, we're getting the feedback that there's this theory-practice gap. So what we're exploring is an experiential lab at Westside Works, where young people will have the opportunity. We have Manpower, which is a company that provides the tech help desk support for Microsoft. They provided us with the tickets, examples, the pre-examination, and et cetera. We're going to take young people through that process, and we're going to provide them a $1,500 stipend while they're working on it. Because we're asking people to, you know, join these boot camps for these future careers, but at the same time, they need that $10 job at Walmart to just take care of their family. So how can we rethink what equity looks like. How can we redesign the system to meet people where they are and provide them with on-ramps? A lot of people are afraid of learning something new. I moved to Brazil, had to learn Portuguese, did not accelerate, was very insecure and afraid. That was my first time I couldn't learn anything quickly. But imagine how many people have that fear. And if we can reach them and incentivize them in a way that's not saying this is a social service, this is charity, this is economic investment at its best. Earlier today, someone quoted Ronald Reagan and said that the best social impact is a job. And so if we can create more opportunities for people to be inspired to work in these positions, I think that's how we help to resolve some of the issues that we are facing.
Tá muito bom. Podemos falar em português.
Oh, e você?
I went to Georgia Tech.
Those are great initiatives. You know, there's so many things that are connected with this challenge. And as you said, a hungry child can't learn, and someone who has to worry about that $10 an hour, it's important. It's extremely important. Kamal, you talk about, our tech companies and a little bit broader perspective about the community and how the community can engage in this. And it's companies, it's individuals, it's humans, and those and other factors that grow to make up a community. How can that assist in some non-traditional ways to meet this challenge?
Well, if I may, just to go back to the previous question just for a second, I think one of the non-traditional approaches in this is what I was alluding to before. I think that Atlanta is, let me say first, I'm from New York. However, I've been in Atlanta for a long time, and I believe, I think like we all do, that this is a uniquely important city to the future of the country. We're at an inflection point between a civil rights past, a technical future. The city of Atlanta is 90% either black or white, 50% white, 50% black and 40% white. It's unusual in a whole lot of different ways. So there I would argue that because what I was suggesting before is that I think as individual corporations and companies and the like, if we think about who we are, we have the best intentioned people having this very conversation in every city. But the patterns remain exactly the same. And I don't assume, notwithstanding the fact that I went to tech, that we somehow have a miraculously better approach than anybody else does. So what it may be that's non-traditional is that as we're growing here in this unusual inflection point, we have to have a much more concerted, collaborative approach to the way that we address these issues. So if, for example, we're trying to find a workforce strategy for students who wouldn't otherwise get into the game, that's not something that Microsoft should be doing on their own. We should have a portfolio of companies who focus on that, such that the order and expansion of what they're capable of doing is well beyond what any individual company can do. And then ultimately, I think as the city presents itself to these new arrivees, this is our set of priorities. So if you, company A, want to adopt a school, you don't come specifically to me as superintendent and say, well, I want to adopt this school, what are the criteria, which one, and the like. I'm saying to you as a superintendent on behalf of the city, well, we have all of these schools that need to be adopted, and you're just one of them. But here's our template for the way that you engage. And I think the non-traditional part of that is the collaboration, which we haven't seen. And I think that branding gets in the way and competitiveness and the like. But to my very first point, if we elevate the city as the unit of analysis, then everybody else is secondary to that. How do we operate as corporations looking for employees, looking for community to be in service of the sustainability of the city? And I think that's the non-traditional path, and I think that's the way also that we get engaged with the community too.
It's interesting in economic development, we've often had the cluster theory about, a company begets another company. There's a reason why there's a epicenter of financial services in New York City. And part of it is they do feed off each other. They compete, but yet, if someone gets displaced, they know they can walk down the street and they can continue their careers. Another thing that we talk about in economic development that's evolved is we typically talk about it, quality of life. You know, we got a great place. Everybody loves it here. Everybody loves where they're from, by the way, or where they live. And everybody is a great cheerleader, and that's great, and that's inclusive of Atlanta and Georgia. But the other thing that we talk about in economic development is quality of place. And quality of place really refers to a geography that has a unique set of offerings, services, experiences that you can't find anywhere else. I'm not going to pick on any particular brand, but there are plenty of restaurants or things that you can follow in every strip mall in America. What are the things that are so unique here that really help us, you know, create a unique set of experiences? So this challenge that we're talking about, every city in America is looking at this challenge. They're struggling with it. And how do we build a more diverse, inclusive, sustainable workforce? So of all the cities in the United States, why is Atlanta best positioned to excel and to lead here?
So we've seen it. What is unique in Atlanta is that we have the capacity to create and galvanize a movement. We've seen it from the civil rights movement. We've seen it even from this notion of Atlanta influences everything. You know, that started off as a t-shirt and someone, Bame Joyner, you know, standing on the stage. Now you have politicians, executives, students, everyone behind this perspective that Atlanta influences everything. And so I think the next movement that we need to create is all of these companies and representatives in the room agreeing that we have the opportunity to create a workforce where Atlanta is globally known for a diverse tech workforce that has trickled and expanded into communities that are typically excluded from this digital economy. And we can now see that instead of being concerned that a person living in Grove Park will be displaced because there are townhomes for sale on Hollowell for $700,000, we can say that we've created a city where majority of the residents, we're number one in a lack of economic mobility. If you're born in poverty in the city of Atlanta, you have a 4% chance of getting out of poverty. And I think the brilliance in this room, the tech companies in this room can galvanize around a movement to shift that, and that we can do it, and it can be done very quickly and impactfully.
I agree. And so this is all like Atlanta Love Fest for me. I think that if we think about it in the historical sense, as you alluded to, Erica, when we were coming out of the civil rights era, Atlanta didn't go the way of the other cities. And I think as a testament to the leadership then, Leadership Atlanta, and that whole idea of the Atlanta way is a significant non-traditional path out of social and civil turmoil that the country saw at a time in the South where there was nobody else of a city of this size that went the way that we went. And I think that this is a similarly divisive time. I think that we should not underestimate the significance of the threats to the basic democracy, the threats to basic decency and civility, and we did it then. Mm-hmm. So I think now, as I was alluding to, I think that it's important to be honest about where we are. And so if we're thinking about how we might make Atlanta special, I think it's absorbing all the reality that there is. And I think to Erica's point, some of that honesty is, you know, the socioeconomic mobility and the lack thereof is an extraordinary challenge. We're, as I mentioned before, we're a profoundly segregated place. We have a lot of, I mean, just this weekend, as you know, these kids got shot, and that engendered, even just when you listen to it, it engendered two very different kinds of reaction. One was kind of a love and nurturing, and what do we do to help these children? And the other was, how do we lock them up and keep them away? And that, to me, is indicative of the kind of divisiveness that's existent in the city. So if we're trying to reconcile that, I think we have to broaden our set of responsibilities, broaden our sense of expectations of each other. And as unusually influential actors in the city, which we are, I think that's making the case. It makes the case to the kind of municipal leadership, TAG as association. I think your leadership in this has been profound. And so there, as we begin to make the case for Atlanta, I think we have to be fully complete about what that case actually is.
And then I would also like to add, you know, Kamal and I and Heather, have been brainstorming on different activities and innovations that we can do. This is Google and Microsoft, but if you were to strip away, this is Kamal and Erica, who have similar vision and desire for social impact. And so there are different political perspectives, corporate competitiveness that can come into play. But if we were to strip that down and just identify those who have very similar goals and visions for our city, and then we come together regardless of the corporation that you work for, I think that we can change the tide and shift the narrative in a way that shows that we have ecosystem building that is very robust, say, within Black entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And you've seen all of these different organizations come together for that. Now there's an opportunity for us to take off our branded hats and have a seat at the table to say we are all aligned that we need to improve the socio-economic outlook of all of our citizens in Atlanta, and tech can be that equalizer, that unifier, and to create the equity that we know everyone deserves.
You know, Erica, you put a really fine point on it, and if we opened up this tent to people and that could think about and are dedicated to this community, I think we'd fill the tent up fast, and we need a bigger tent. And I want to applaud you and Kamal for you're sending a signal right here on this stage today that we can do this, that there is a greater achievement, a greater good. So thank you so much for doing that. And, you know, and yeah, give them an applause. And you also talked about, you know, the broader community. We talked about large corporations, but it's the startup community too. It's people that are driving that next generation of ingenuity that are going to build that next, you know, companies. And I don't care whether they scale and sell it or if they grow up to be the next globally dominant company. This all drives the ecosystem. So how do we turn this into action? You know, how do we start to put a framework together that we can really achieve and meet the aspirations that we're talking about on stage? Erica?
So one of the things that, you know, I think is interesting is that we have a lot of new tech entrants into our market. There's Airbnb, there's Nike, Microsoft, Google, you could say Amazon, others that are smaller. We all need to get together and formulate a coalition to identify what is the one or two social issues that we want to tackle, and then bring our thought leadership, our corporate resources to the table. Secondly, you know, I worked in marketing before moving back in the day, my first career, and the voice of the customer is so important. Everyone wants to make community impact. Do we even know what the community want? You know, like we have a lot of technology training programs. Are people really interested in coding? Maybe they've moved on to AI. Maybe they're more interested in the integration between music and technology. So, you know, making sure that we're giving community and not your typical, you know, leaders of the nonprofit organizations, but those persons who typically may not, they don't have a seat at the table. They don't even know where the meeting is because they're so far removed from those conversations. And making sure that we are engaging and talking to them to understand what is their vision for Atlanta and from a digital economy and a tech perspective. And then we figure out how all of our organizations come in to help satisfy and deliver that.
Excellent. Kamal?
I agree.
And I went to Florida A&M University, and the Georgia Tech person just agreed with me.
I would only add that I really do agree. I think that if we found a way, particularly perhaps using tag, if you were to help organize some of the new migrants, I think the point that Erica alluded to there that I perhaps am ascribing a little bit too much importance to, but I don't know, I feel like it's important. These new companies that are coming in, I'm a part of, we both are. So Atlanta has been operating a particular way for about a century. And then we have these new companies, Microsoft is a little bit of an anomaly, but the Googles and Twitter and Amazon and the like, they're all brand new. They're all essentially were born at the turn of this century. So we don't really have any historical precedent for trillion-dollar nation states arriving into a city. As you pointed out, Delta and Coke and the like, they all grew up here to some extent. But here we have nation states, 250,000 people, trillion-dollar valuations just arriving in the city. And so we don't have there's no precedent for that. And so we have the Atlanta Committee for Progress, for example, which has been around since the Franklin administration. And that coalition has been, I think, transcendent in trying to organize corporate leadership in service of the mayor's agenda. But now we have these new migrants that are not a part of that. So what's the relationship between these two sets of groups that I would argue are not equally yoked in terms of power, but they also are contending with an existing set of corporations that have been here forever, whose roots are deep into the city. And so there, I think one opportunity perhaps that TAG and others and we can play is to facilitate that relationship, such that as we're going in to do what Erica is suggesting, where we're trying to go talk to people to figure out exactly what you actually want, we also need to know, well, how does Atlanta actually work? Because we just got here, we don't know. So we just showed up, we built a building in the pandemic, and we just turned on the lights, and like, here it is. And everybody was like, oh shit, Google's here?
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Exactly right.
Ta-da.
I mean, quite literally, that's what a lot of my friends actually say. That's a quote just to cover my language, but that's how people were like, there's this big building, and then all of a sudden the lights came on. And so I think the subtext of what I'm saying is that I think that there's a tectonic shift that's going on. I don't think we should underestimate the power of these companies. If Microsoft, for example, was to do what it said in the beginning and bring 15,000 people here, all of whom are highly skilled, 15,000 people, we already have an order of magnitude, a colleague of mine can acknowledge, Google's been in Atlanta for 20 years, but nobody knew. We just expanded by an order of magnitude. And the people that are there, their average incomes are also an order of magnitude more than the majority of the existing population in Atlanta. So we're transforming this place in ways that we've never seen. But if we don't acknowledge it expressly, then all the consequences of that kind of transformation will be borne out like they've been borne out in every other city. So I think, to Erica's point, I absolutely agree that we have to have a way to introduce these new companies and our often quiet power to the existent reality that is Atlanta.
And we all come because of what Atlanta is. It's soulful, it's creative, it's energetic. It's a place where, you know, people who are not born here, I would say, can come with a dream and easily manifest it. But if we continue to just allow the companies to come, we bring in all our people, that soul of Atlanta will disappear. And then what happens? And that's what I think is the opportunity and the challenge that we're faced with today.
Those are great points, because it really is about that, you know, make sure all the things that are good, the culture, the uniqueness doesn't get diluted into being something else. I mean, we can go to Miami anytime. But, you know, so listen to our customers. Let's engage the community. Let's really frame up the problem. Let's be real. Let's be authentic, and let's address it as we need to. Or some great tips and great ways for us to start a structure. TAG has just launched TAG Bridge Builders. And it's an initiative to really, you know, we talked about diversity and inclusion for the broad sense, but in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, we decided to set a priority amongst priorities to what can we do to help our African American and our Black residents. And part of that is, how do we get, you know, 1,000 people into senior and advanced executive level positions? As the silver tsunami is upon us, and many people are starting to retire, we've got to be able to fill those jobs, and we need the brightest and the best to really be thinking about that. The other is, how do we help founders? You know, we talked about access, we've talked about connections, and introduction is absolutely critical. But how do we utilize these great corporations to help provide them with an entryway, with feedback, with knowledge, with access? So that's important to us, and we'll be doing that, our first one, January 24th. at Comcast up at the Battery. What else can we do? What else can TAG be doing to help support and accelerate this conversation? And Kamal, I want to also add to that something that you said. We got to scale it. It's scale, and go back to an earlier question and connect our local population to this great prosperity.
Well, my theme here has been consistent. I think that the thing that we haven't really done well is to coordinate. And I think if you, for example, if that's a TAG issue, then TAG is a membership organization. So it could be that part of the requirement for membership is participation in them. So if we were thinking about, a set of priorities, so you have a priority among priorities, but if there are 2 or 3 sets of priorities where just by virtue of being a participant in this community, there are certain things that we all do, and we kind of agree on what those are. I think that's the scalability. And I think that that's true in any of the various priorities that we outline, but I think that the catalytic force that TAG holds is to help us do that, because we might not know on our own what the best way is. But since you have a program that already works, then look, TAG community, me a part of it, this is how we would operate to help support that larger goal.
Erica?
And I keep thinking of this notion of digital equity and inclusion. So it's 4 pillars. One, of course, workforce development, that we are creating a tech talent pipeline, and TAG has a strong role in that. 2, how are we supporting small businesses? I sent a note to myself based on what Stephanie talked about. We need digital transformation. Most tech companies only think of tech startups, but what about the everyday small businesses across different business sectors? Who are the employment centers? So how can we leverage our technology to help provide digital transformation and support in a way that's accessible and affordable? 3rd is around galvanizing the infrastructure for broadband. It used to be a privilege, but that's infrastructure is water, utilities, broadband. And
air, it's like air now, you gotta have it.
And then lastly is affordable devices. When I was at the Casey Foundation, we had a leadership program, and a lot of our students from the West Side, after 2 weeks of having to be on video on their phone, they couldn't participate because they didn't have any more data, and they didn't have home internet. And so that was when I realized that, oh, I'm in a privileged space. I thought everyone had a device, multiple devices, with a limited access to the internet. So how can we work together with TAG to put together a global digital equity and inclusion strategy for our city and then for the state? And I would say a requirement for membership is for each company to have DEI from the perspective of the digital equity and inclusion as a pillar into their work, and a commitment that they would make as to continue to be a member of TAG.
That's great. We're running low on time, but I love this idea about community and how we bring it in. As we talked about TAG's role, one thing we recognize is no organization is going to do this on their own. And one thing we've tried to do is be very focused so that we can articulate what our role is. Because if we can articulate our role to other partners, then they know where we're playing, and therefore we're a stronger partner. And as we understand what others are doing, so I like that. I want to give y'all one chance, just take a quick minute, lightning round, final thoughts as we wrap up this panel. Erica?
Let's unleash genius, our own. We have the possibility to be as innovative and creative as we want to be, and let's help others around us to have that capability to use their brilliance to solve problems, to create opportunities for themselves. So let's just unleash everyone's genius.
Love it.
Let's make Atlanta win. We are a unique city in a unique moment in American history, and I think that if we can set the path for a society that is economically strong, racially just, and socially sustainable, we have the best opportunity in the entire United States to do it.
That's inspiring. We'd mentioned the TAG Bridge Builders. Dr. Loretta Daniels is here. I don't know if she's in the room. She's doing a great job leading that. We've got broader programs as we think about broader STEM workforce and professional development. Heather is sitting on the front row. If you don't know Heather Maxfield, then make sure you get connected with her today as well. Thank y'all so much. It's been a great conversation. I appreciate the tips, and I look forward to our continued work together.
Please welcome back to the stage Teresa Edwards.
All right, all right. What an amazing program thus far. Another round of applause, you guys, for our keynote speaker, our winners, and our fireside chat. All right, got to put on the glasses now. All right, as we conclude the main stage segment of our program today, I want to mention a few housekeeping items. In a moment, we'll break for networking time and refreshments just outside the ballroom. The breakout content sessions will start promptly at 3 p.m. All 3 breakout rooms are marked with signage and the content sessions that will be taking place in each room. Each session will last 40 minutes, and then there will be a 10-minute break in between each session. After all 9 sessions are completed at 5:20, please stay with us for a reception immediately following back here in the ballroom. This will be a great time for networking, food and drink. Please enjoy the great sessions we have lined up for you, and we'll see you back here at 5:20. So get yourself around for sticking with us, and stay here for our breakout sessions. Thank you.
Tired of giving my love and getting nowhere. It's been so long since I've touched a wanting hand. Can't put my love on the line. Wish I hope you understand. So baby, if you want me, you got to show me love. Words are so easy to say, but you got to show me love. But you got to show me love.
2. 1, 2. Hey, hey.